Good afternoon. I am John Daniszewski, Vice President for Standards at the Associated Press and co-chair of the Pulitzer Prize Board. On behalf of co-chairs Catherine Boo, contributing editor of The New Yorker, and Gail Collins, editorial columnist at The New York Times, we welcome you to the announcement of the 2022 Pulitzer Prizes. These are challenging and dangerous days for journalists around the world. This year alone, the war in Ukraine has claimed 12 journalists' lives, and 8 Mexican journalists have been murdered. In Afghanistan, thousands of journalists have gone into exile or faced assault and intimidation under the new Taliban regime. In Myanmar and elsewhere, independent journalism has been driven underground, and across the globe, including here at home, civil democratic society is under threat. Online harassment of journalists is rampant, and increasingly legal challenges seek to slow or curtail our endeavors to report the news with accuracy and fairness. Which is why it is essential that journalists at every level keep doing the difficult and sometimes courageous work to bring the public true and revelatory stories on subjects from corruption to freedom of expression to civil rights, to the degradation of the environment, to suppression of women's freedoms, and threats against disadvantaged people of all kinds. These stories sometimes right injustice. Sometimes they illuminate the deeper context of the local communities in which we live. Sometimes they surprise and entertain. But what all of the art and journalism we honor today has in common is that it was done ethically and seriously, and in its enterprise has played a part in keeping our democracies vibrant. We urge you to engage with, argue with, and find inspiration in the work we celebrate. Now, I would like to introduce Marjorie Miller, a distinguished journalist herself, and the new administrator of the Pulitzer Prizes.
Thank you, John. I'm honored to be the new steward of the Pulitzer Prizes, particularly in this time when truth and facts and books are under increasing assault. Despite these challenges, or perhaps because of them, we received thousands of entries this year, from investigations that relied on data and crowdsourcing and shoe leather, to profound works in the arts and letters that challenged convention in every regard. So let's get to the reason we're all here, the announcement of the 2022 Pulitzer Prizes. For breaking news reporting, the finalists are the staff of the Miami Herald for its coverage of the Champlain Towers South condominium complex, the staff of the Los Angeles Times for its coverage of the fatal shooting on the Rust film set, the staff of the New York Times for its reporting on the attack on Washington. And the prize goes to the staff of the Miami Herald for its urgent yet sweeping coverage of the collapse of the Champlain Towers South condominium complex, merging clear and compassionate writing with comprehensive news and accountability reporting. For investigative reporting, the finalists are Jeffrey Maitrot and Nicole Norfleet of the Star Tribune for exposing how companies purchase court-approved settlement funds from accident victims. Corey G. Johnson, Rebecca Willington, and Eli Murray of the Tampa Bay Times for their investigation of toxic hazards inside Florida's only battery recycling plant. Hannah Dreyer and Andrew Ba Tran of the Washington Post for a series revealing FEMA's failure to confront structural racism and climate change. And the prize goes to Corey G. Johnson, Rebecca Willington, and Eli Murray of the Tampa Bay Times for a compelling expose of highly toxic hazards inside Florida's only battery recycling plant that forced the implementation of safety measures to adequately protect workers and nearby residents. For explanatory reporting, the finalists are the staff of the Philadelphia Inquirer for a richly reported series on the roots of gun violence in the city, the staff of Quanta magazine, and notably Natalie Wolkover for its coverage of the building of the James Webb Space Telescope, the staff of the Wall Street Journal for stories about the enduring effects of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. And the prize goes to the staff of Quanta magazine, and notably Natalie Wolkover, for coverage that revealed the complexities of building the James Webb Space Telescope, designed to facilitate groundbreaking astronomical and cosmological research. For local reporting, the finalists are Madison Hopkins of the Better Government Association and Cecilia Reyes of the Chicago Tribune for their expose of deaths caused by failed safety code enforcement in the city. Tony Cook, Johnny Magdaleno, and Michelle Pemberton of the Indianapolis Star for their critical examination of Indiana's red flag gun law. Lulu Ramadan of the Palm Beach Post, and Ash New, Maya Miller, and Nadia Sussman of ProPublica for an investigation of dangerous air pollution during the sugarcane harvest season in Florida. And the prize goes to Madison Hopkins of the Better Government Association and Cecilia Reyes of the Chicago Tribune for a piercing examination of the city's long history of failed building and fire safety code enforcement, which let scofflaw landlords commit serious violations that resulted in dozens of unnecessary deaths. For national reporting, the finalists are Eli Hager of the Marshall Project and Joseph Shapiro, contributor of National Public Radio, for reporting on agencies that pocketed Social Security benefits for children in foster care. The staff of the New York Times for their probe of fatal traffic stops by police. The staff of the Washington Post for a series on persistent environmental racism. And the prize goes to the staff of the New York Times for an ambitious project that quantified a disturbing pattern of fatal traffic stops by police, illustrating how hundreds of deaths could have been avoided and how officers typically avoided punishment. For international reporting, the finalists are the staff of the New York Times for coverage of the fall of the Afghan government and the return of the Taliban, the staff of the New York Times for an investigation of the assassination of Haiti's president, Yaroslav Trofimov, and the staff of the Wall Street Journal for deeply reported stories from Afghanistan, the staff of the New York Times for challenging official accounts of American military engagements in Iraq, Syria, and Afghanistan. And the prize goes to the staff of the New York Times for courageous and relentless reporting that exposed the vast civilian toll of U.S.-led airstrikes, challenging official accounts of American military engagements in Iraq, Syria, and Afghanistan. For feature writing, the finalists are Anand Gopal, contributing writer, The New Yorker, for his account of Afghan women forgotten in the war. Maraba Knight of WPLN, contributor, and Ken Armstrong of ProPublica for their account of Black children in Tennessee who were arrested for a crime that doesn't exist. Jennifer Senior of The Atlantic for a portrait of a family's reckoning with loss since 9/11. And the prize goes to Jennifer Senior of The Atlantic for an unflinching portrait of a family's reckoning with loss in the 20 years since 9/11, masterfully braiding the author's personal connection to the story with sensitive reporting that reveals the long reach of grief. For commentary, the finalists are Julian Uggan, freelance contributor, The Atlantic, for an essay that explores climate change through the stories of Indigenous Pacific Island communities. Zainab Tufekci, for her columns on the pandemic and American culture, published in the New York Times and The Atlantic. Melinda Henneberger, of the Kansas City Star, for columns demanding justice for alleged victims of a retired police detective accused of being a sexual predator. And the prize goes to Melinda Henneberger of the Kansas City Star for persuasive columns demanding justice for alleged victims of a retired police detective accused of being a sexual predator. For criticism, the finalists are Salamisha Tillett, contributing critic at large, The New York Times, for writing about Black art and popular culture. Peter Sheldall, of The New Yorker, for art criticism. Sophie Gilbert, of The Atlantic, for articles about gender norms, feminism, and popular culture. And the prize goes to Salamisha Tillett, contributing critic at large, The New York Times, for learned and stylish writing about Black stories in art and popular culture, work that successfully bridges academic and non-academic critical discourse. For editorial writing, the finalists are editorial staff of the Times-Picayune, the New Orleans Advocate, for editorials prompted by a reporter being sued for a public records request. Abdullah Fayed of the Boston Globe, for editorials arguing that the President of the United States could be prosecuted for crimes committed in office. Lisa Falkenberg, Michael Lindenberger, Joe Hawley, and Luis Carrasco of the Houston Chronicle for a campaign that reported voter suppression tactics, undercut the myth of voter fraud, and argued for sensible voting reforms. And the prize goes to Lisa Falkenberg, Michael Lindenberger, Joe Hawley, and Luis Carrasco of the Houston Chronicle for a campaign that, with original reporting, revealed voter suppression tactics, rejected the myth of widespread voter fraud, and argued for sensible voting reforms. For illustrated reporting and commentary, the finalists are Famida Azam, Anthony Del Col, Josh Adams, and Walt Hickey of Insider for using the comics medium to describe the Chinese oppression of the Uyghurs. Zoe C., contributor, The New Yorker, for cartoons capturing daily and political life during the pandemic. Ann Telnays of The Washington Post, for layered cartoons on social and political topics. And the prize goes to Famida Azam, Anthony Del Col, Josh Adams, and Walt Hickey of Insider for using graphic reportage and the comics medium to tell a powerful yet intimate story of the Chinese oppression of the Uyghurs, making the issue accessible to a wider public. For breaking news photography, the finalists are Anonymous, freelance contributor, The New York Times, for images of the military coup in Myanmar. Wynne McNamee, Drew Angerer, Spencer Platt, Samuel Coram, and John Cherry of Getty Images for photos of the attack on the U.S. Capitol. Marcus Yam of the Los Angeles Times for images of the U.S. departure from Afghanistan. We are awarding 2 prizes in this category, and the winners are Marcus Yam of the Los Angeles Times for raw and urgent images of the U.S. departure from Afghanistan that capture the human cost of the historic change in the country. And Wynne McNamee, Drew Angerer, Spencer Platt, Samuel Coram, and John Cherry of Getty Images for comprehensive and consistently riveting photos of the attack on the U.S. Capitol. For feature photography, the finalists are Adnan Abidi, Sana Irshad Matu, Amit Dave, and the late Danish Siddiqui of Reuters for images of COVID's toll in India. Photography staff of Reuters for images of climate change around the globe. Gabrielle Lurie of the San Francisco Chronicle for images of a mother's attempts to care for her homeless, drug-addicted daughter. And the prize goes to Adnan Abidi, Sana Irshad Matu, Amit Dave, and the late Danish Siddiqui of Reuters for images of COVID's toll in India that balanced intimacy and devastation while offering viewers a heightened sense of place. For audio reporting, the finalists are the staffs of Futuro Media and PRX for Suave, about a man re-entering society after more than 30 years in prison. Ader Peralta, Salomon Fiseha, Alsanosi Adam, and Halima Athumani of National Public Radio for their stories on the war in East Africa. Mike Hixenbaugh, Antonia Hilton, Reed Cherlin, Julie Shapiro, and Franny Kelly of NBC News for Southlake, an account of an anti-critical race theory movement in a Texas community. And the prize goes to the staffs of Futuro Media and PRX for Suave, a brutally honest and immersive profile of a man re-entering society after serving more than 30 years in prison. For public service, the finalists are the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel for its expose of electrical fires in the city's rental properties, the New York Times for challenging official accounts of American military engagements in Iraq, Syria, and Afghanistan, the Washington Post for its account of the assault on Washington on January 6, 2021. And the prize goes to the Washington Post for its compellingly told and vividly presented account of the assault on Washington on January 6, 2021, providing the public with a thorough and unflinching understanding of one of the nation's darkest days. For biography, the finalists are The Doctor's Blackwell by Janice P. Nomura, Chasing Me to My Grave, an artist's memoir of the Jim Crow South by the late Winfred Rembert, as told to Aaron I. Kelly. Pessoa by Richard Zenith, and the prize goes to Chasing Me to My Grave, an artist's memoir of the Jim Crow South by the late Winfred Rembert, as told to Aaron I. Kelly. A searing first-person illustrated account of an artist's life during the 1950s and 1960s in an unreconstructed corner of the Deep South. An account of abuse, endurance, imagination, and aesthetic transformation. For general nonfiction, the finalists are Invisible Child by Andrea Elliott, Homeland Security by Carla Power, The Family Row by Joshua Prager. And the prize goes to Invisible Child by Andrea Elliott, an affecting, deeply reported account of a girl who comes of age during New York City's homeless crisis, a portrait of resilience amid institutional failure that successfully merges literary narrative with policy analysis. For history, the finalists are Covered with Night by Nicole Eustace, Cuba, An American History by Ada Ferrer, Until Justice Be Done by Kate Mazer. We are awarding 2 prizes in this category, and the winners are Covered with Night by Nicole Eustace, a gripping account of Indigenous justice in early America and how the aftermath of a settler's murder led to the oldest continuously recognized treaty in the United States. And Cuba, An American History by Ada Ferrer, an original and compelling history spanning 5 centuries of the island that became an obsession for many presidents and policymakers, transforming how we think about the U.S. and Latin America and Cuba in American society. For poetry, the finalists are Frank, Sonnets by Diane Seuss, Yellow Rain by Maider Bang, Refractive Africa, Ballet of the Forgotten by Will Alexander. And the prize goes to Frank, Sonnets by Diane Seuss, a virtuosic collection that inventively expands the sonnet form to confront the messy contradictions of contemporary America, including the beauty and the difficulty of working-class life in the Rust Belt. For music, the finalists are 7 Pillars by Andy Akiho, Voiceless Mass by Raven Chacon, With Eyes the Color of Time by Anne Lele-Wuha Lancelotti, and the prize goes to Voiceless Mass by Raven Chacon, a mesmerizing original work for organ and ensemble that evokes the weight of history in a church setting, a concentrated and powerful musical expression with a haunting visceral impact. For drama, the finalists are Fat Ham by James Imes, Selling Cobble by Sylvia Corey, Christina Wong, Sweatshop Overlord by Christina Wong, and the prize goes to Fat Ham by James Imes, a funny, poignant play that deftly transposes Hamlet to a family barbecue in the American South to grapple with questions of identity, kinship, responsibility, and honesty. For fiction, the finalists are The Netanyahus by Joshua Cohen, Monkey Boy by Francisco Goldman, Palmares by Gail Jones, and the prize goes to The Netanyahus by Joshua Cohen, a mordant, linguistically deft historical novel about the ambiguities of the Jewish American experience, presenting ideas and disputes as volatile as its tightly wound plot. In addition, the Pulitzer Prize Board is pleased to award a special citation to the journalists of Ukraine for their courage, endurance, and commitment to truthful reporting during Vladimir Putin's ruthless invasion of their country and his propaganda war in Russia. Despite bombardment, abductions, occupation, and even deaths in their ranks, they have persisted in their effort to provide an accurate picture of a terrible reality, doing honor to Ukraine and to journalists around the world. And there you have it. Congratulations to the winners and finalists of the 2022 Pulitzer Prizes. Please remind friends and colleagues that they can find these works and the winning work of previous years at www.pulitzer.org. Thank you, and goodbye for now.
Good afternoon. The 9,027th meeting of the Security Council is called to order. The provisional agenda for this meeting is maintenance of peace and security of Ukraine. The agenda is adopted. I would like to take this opportunity to thank, on behalf of the Council, Ambassador Barbara Woodward, Permanent Representative of the United Kingdom, for her service as President of the Council for the month of April. I would like to express the Council's appreciation to Ambassador Woodward and her team for the skill with which they conducted the Council's business last month. Thank you, Barbara. In accordance with Rule 37 of the Council's Provisional Rules